Okay, I'm very glad to welcome to our webinar Mark Manning of iTrace Technologies. Mark is joining us from Silicon Valley. We have connected somehow over the web, over the blockchain excitement, and we had a good conversation. Mark is mainly working in the not mining industry yet, but his technology helps prevent fraud. And I was very naive, and I thought, is there that much fraud? And then Mark suggested me to read a book about a big fraud case that came actually also from Silicon Valley about fraud with the blood testing. And I think that was very educational and made me think about, how much fraud is out there in the world, and that Mark's technology is helping to prevent. So Mark, please tell us a little bit about yourself, about your company, and then we'll be great to learn about your technology.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tanya. So yeah, my name is Mark Manning. I'm founder and CEO of iTrace Technologies. We're a Silicon Valley software company that has been helping brands around the world fight issues of counterfeit, diversion, and gray market trading of their products. So we started off in the watch industry and helping some very large watch companies secure their manufacturing overseas and ensure that product isn't leaking out the back door of their factories, and then secure the supply chain all the way from manufacturing to retail sales from the moment they issue the purchase order all the way through to when the item is sold. So we have a lot of experience dealing with fraud from a product perspective around the world, a lot of experience fighting counterfeit and gray market trading. We've been doing a lot of work recently with the aerospace industry, specifically Honeywell Aerospace, to help them create provenance of their parts from the moment the part is born all the way through to its end of life, which may be many, many years after that part is born. Part of the reason that we got involved was that Honeywell has implemented a blockchain provenance for their manufacturing, and we are helping them connect the parts that are manufactured to that digital ledger. And we'll talk about why that's important in a couple of minutes in the slides here. So iTrace is a software company, and our focus has been supply chain security, providing that visibility and control. And we're not like your traditional blockchain company in that we use blockchain as a technology alongside all of the other technologies that we have out there. We are not primarily focused on blockchain, but we see blockchain as an additional tool and a way for transactions to be recorded along with the companies that we're working with. So let's dig into this a little bit. So iTrace Technologies has a number of software applications. We have a proprietary technology that is able to secure products, and it can be printed or laser etched onto items. And what we're going to be talking about is the square box that you see on the screen with the diagonal lines. That is a proprietary iTrace 2DMI mark. And from a functionality perspective, it acts in a similar way to a QR code or a Datamatrix code. But as we're going to talk about in a minute, there's a number of key differences, a number of reasons that companies are looking to iTrace as opposed to using standard QR codes and Datamatrix codes in their product security. So let's start off talking about blockchain. We're not going to dig into blockchain technology too deeply here, but more as an enabling technology for the things that we're helping our customers with. As I said, we use blockchain, and we think that blockchain is only part of the solution to providing an anti-counterfeit, anti-gray market, and supply chain security technology. And as we've been working with the companies like Honeywell and like the folks in the watch industries, they've realized that implementing a blockchain by itself for them would be pointless if they're unable to secure the actual physical product to that blockchain ledger. Having secure data and an immutable ledger of data is a great thing. But if you can't understand that the product that is recorded on that ledger in the beginning when it's born is the same product that's being handled a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years later, the blockchain data is only as valuable as any other data that is provided for that particular product. So what we're going to talk about is how do you create a security connection between the actual product and the blockchain ledger? And why has recently blockchain been given a false sense of security as a supply chain security solution. There's been a lot of hype around blockchain solving every problem on the planet from a number of blockchain companies that have come and gone over the last few years. They pitch blockchain as a solution to a problem that may not necessarily be able to be solved by blockchain on its own. And blockchain can track the package, but what secures the actual product that's inside that package? How many layers of technology do you need to actually secure a physical item and make it worthwhile implementing a digital ledger? So let's talk about provenance in the supply chain. It's been a growing issue for a number of years. Obviously, there's a lot of counterfeit products that come out of places like China and end up being shipped around the world. How do you control or understand the provenance of products from the moment they're created through to their end of life? And for those in the United States who understand or know of Kelley Blue Book, if you've ever seen or a car commercial on TV, Kelley Blue Book is the provenance information for the automotive industry. It has service history and records and crash records of the automotive of cars that are being bought and sold. What Honeywell is building is that Kelley Blue Book of aerospace parts. So understanding and knowing what aircraft the part has been used on, what its maintenance history is, what its maintenance records are, how many service intervals has that unit gone through, and how many different airlines has it been owned by, is become very important for Honeywell and people in that used and refurbished aircraft parts business. Honeywell sees blockchain today as the internet was 40 years ago. 40 years ago, there were a few dozen computers connected together around the world that created the very first internet. And Honeywell sees blockchain technology as being in a similar position today as the internet was 40 years ago. And they feel that they're at the ground floor of this new technology revolution that they are going to be using and are using in their manufacturing and supply chain. So Honeywell understands, the provenance is important. And the reason it's important to them is that if they can provide data on a used and refurbished aircraft part that has its entire history encoded in a blockchain, that part is more valuable on the marketplace than a part with no history, no data, no information, and no irrefutable ledger that's backing that up. So they realized that creating that provenance and creating that secure data that they can actually share with people and give to people about a part adds more value to their used parts and refurbished parts business. And in the same way as a $100 bill has many different layers of technology to help identify counterfeit dollar bills, they are applying different layers of technology to securing aircraft parts. And one of those layers of technology is iTrace 2DMI. What they're doing is they're laser etching the iTrace 2DMI mark onto the part, and that part is then recorded using a mobile app from iTrace onto the digital ledger. Every time that part changes hands, the iTrace 2DMI mark is scanned and a transaction record is created that records the information about that part and exactly what aircraft it's gone onto, what maintenance interval it's going through. And they can apply these 2DMI marks from iTrace onto many, many different components, many, many different parts in an assembly or a subassembly. So people always ask us, well, yeah, this is great. You've got a unique and proprietary technology, but why can't I just use Datamatrix or QR codes as my solution, like everybody is doing in the packaging industry today? I think almost every blockchain implementation that claims to be able to solve the problem of counterfeit and diversion is using a QR code on that product. The problem with that is that QR codes these days are not secure. They're an open source technology. You can read them with many, many different apps. You can read them with many open source apps. And those technologies have been adopted by hackers and counterfeiters and people who want to download malware onto devices or computers. And this is not a possible attack to devices. This is happening today. You can look on YouTube for QR code scams, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds of videos of, certainly in China, of rideshare bicycles that have had new QR code stickers applied to them when you scan the QR code, it actually takes money out of your account and delivers it to a hacker, as opposed to the rideshare company. It's easy to download malware onto a device using a QR code. I don't have to understand the information that's in your QR code to create this kind of technology for my counterfeit products. All I need to do is create QR codes of my own that authenticate to a copy of a brand's website. And as a consumer, you don't know the difference between a QR code that scans to the authentic website and a QR code that scans to the fake website. What this has done, using QR codes and open source technologies like QR code and barcode, has given a method for counterfeiters to legitimize fake product. And they're legitimizing fake product through the use of weak technologies, weak security technologies like QR code, Datamatrix, and barcode. I think you can look at, I think it was AMD and their Ryzen processor. They had exactly this issue with applying a QR code to the processor, and they applied a QR code to the box. What the counterfeiters did was they took the QR code off of the processor, scanned it with their own devices, created a new QR code for a cheap Intel replica, stuck that on the chip that they put back in the box, and then they sold the high-end expensive Ryzen chips on eBay to the cryptocurrency mining folks. And they made double money off of this scam in that they sold the original box with a fake Intel processor and a fake QR code on it on eBay, and then they made the money on the Ryzen chips themselves, selling those to the cryptocurrency mining companies. So using QR codes, Datamatrix, and barcode as a way of connecting physical items to the digital ledger is weak and actually makes the digital ledger data meaningless because it is too easy to fake these technologies. The QR code on the right-hand side of this screen, I scribbled all over it to prevent anyone actually scanning it. But if you scanned that with an Android device, it would actually open up what's called a Metapeda session in the background that would download an app onto your device that would capture every keystroke and every activity that occurred on your Android device. It would then upload that activity to a hacker somewhere in the Ukraine, and that information would be used again to provide scams and steal your personal data. So these things are happening today. This is not a fantasy attack or something that could happen in the future. These technologies are being leveraged today and are making things like QR code and Datamatrix a weak and pointless solution for actually connecting physical items to the digital ledger. So why is iTrace different? So iTrace is different in that we have a proprietary technology, which is made up of our square box with the diagonal lines. It's a vector-based code. And being proprietary, we enable the brands that we work with to be able to control how they mark these things and who can read them. And we can apply these covertly down to around about 200 microns with off-the-shelf laser technology. They can be printed. They can be added to print systems. We have software that connects with Indigo presses and the industrial printers that are out there today. And being applied to the physical product, it enables to secure a product from the moment it is born all the way through to its end of life. Given a quadrillion combinations per user license key means that you can mark many, many, many different items for a brand and secure many, many different products. And the proprietary nature of this means that if I sold a license key to Pepsi and I sold a license key to Coke, they could mark every product, every can or bottle that they ever produce. And neither Coke nor Pepsi could read the information that was in each other's iTrace 2DMI marks. They're proprietary and unique to the brand, which means they have control over who's reading them and who's applying them, which is part of our solution to secure the factories in China. We enable the brands to secure their factory by controlling the machines that are applying these marks. And when the machine has completed its process of applying the marks for a particular purchase order, it actually shuts off and won't produce any more products. So in that way, we're securing the factories that are producing product in China for OEMs in Europe, and they have real-time visibility into that production process. So another important aspect of this for the aerospace industry, certainly for the work that we're doing with Honeywell, is the damage resistance of these iTrace 2DMI marks. The marks in the middle of this slide on the images are actually marks that have been taken from products that have been attacked by diverters trying to cover up the original source or provenance of a physical item or product. And they tried to scratch the codes off. They tried to remove the codes with engraving machines. But we're still able to decode the iTrace 2DMI mark information from these heavily damaged codes. And the way that we're able to do that is because we're a vector-based code, not a contrast-based code. And we're still able to read the vectors that you would not be able to read with a technology like a Datamatrix or a QR code, which is relying on contrast of light and dark squares to be able to encode the information. So we're a fundamentally different technology to QR code and Datamatrix, which enables us to be far more damage resistant. And if you can imagine for an aircraft part that will be on 4 different aircraft over 10 to 15 years, damage and wear resistance is a very, very important piece of creating provenance from an item from the moment it is born to its end of life. So what if you could protect every component of a product, from the shoe tongue label on the physical product itself, to the box, to the tissue paper that went in it, to the hang tag, being able to apply iTrace 2DMI marks on every component or physical piece of a product enables you to secure all of that product. And our business model as a software license enables us to work in this way because we're not adding anything really to the existing product that's there. We're a laser etch or a print on an existing label. So that enables us to create a business model that allows a software license for the brands that we work with, where they can use our technology in as many places on as many products as they need for an individual software license. We have a mobile app that's able to be branded for the brands that we work with. And this mobile app captures the iTrace 2DMI marks down to around 2 millimeters square and can provide provenance information about that physical item. Every transaction from the mobile app is recorded on a blockchain. And our blockchain interface allows us to connect to any blockchain that our customers are using. They don't have to use our blockchain ledger. They can use their own blockchain ledger, which is, again, one of the things that Honeywell wanted to use iTrace for, is that Honeywell's deployed its own Hyperledger fabric, and they needed us to be able to connect that physical item through a mobile app scan to that Hyperledger fabric. And that's what we've done with our mobile application. So it will connect to any blockchain. We don't care what blockchain you're using or what blockchain is being implemented. And we can bring our own along for a brand that doesn't want to support that infrastructure. But the idea of being blockchain agnostic, I think, is very important for a technology like iTrace. Within the app, users can actually interact with the brand that they are scanning the item for. So being able to connect directly with the brand, either via the brand's website or through a chat session, directly from the app itself at the moment it's scanning. So you can connect with the consumer from the moment they are most interested with the product, which is when they have it in their hand and they're scanning it for authenticity or provenance information. So being able to have that consumer engagement and consumer connection directly from the app itself at the moment the customer has the product in their hand has been very important. The other piece that we're able to do with this technology is provide 2-factor authentication. And you're probably familiar with this when you log into your bank account or your Gmail account online. Being able to put in your username and password and then get a security code text to your mobile device is 2-factor authentication. And iTrace provides that ability to secure the existing QR codes, data matrix, lot, batch, and serial numbers that may be being applied to a product today by having a supplemental 2DMI mark that is applied alongside that. So you have the information that you know, which is the open source information available in the QR code, data matrix, and barcode, or the human readable serial number. And then the proprietary unknown information that can only be returned by the iTrace mobile app scanning the 2DMI mark. The information in the QR code or the open source code needs to match the information in the proprietary iTrace mark to authenticate that product. So in that way, we can provide on-product 2-factor authentication to, again, make it even more difficult for counterfeiters and diverters to circumvent or fake the QR code, Datamatrix, and barcode serialization and tracking solutions that may be on that product already. So our goal is to enhance what is already there as opposed to completely replace the investment a brand has made into their product and infrastructure. People often ask us about copy detection. Well, can't I just copy one of these things? Well, no, it's not that easy. We have integrated into our solution the Verinetics copy detection technology, which is a fingerprinting type solution that is able to identify an original iTrace 2DMI mark applied to a product from a copy or a fake 2DMI mark that might be applied to a product. And that Verinetics fingerprinting piece is obtained through registering an individual item at the moment it is created, and then referencing that same registration through a mathematical calculation when the item is scanned or authenticated later in its life. So being able to prevent copies of iTrace 2DMI marks, again, is another layer that adds to the provenance and authenticity of that part, guaranteeing that that part that you have in your hand is the same part that was scanned or registered on the blockchain when it was created in the factory, maybe many, many years earlier. So along with that comes all of the dashboarding information, the reporting information that allows you to, in real time, be able to understand where parts are, where they were last scanned, the blockchain transaction IDs for those individual parts, geolocation information, be able to pop up information on a map about the individual scans or transactions that have occurred for individual parts anywhere in the world. So creating this blockchain-based provenance for the parts that are being produced, manufactured into assemblies, assembled into aircraft, and then used around the world is what we've delivered to companies like Honeywell. You can dig down into these transactions, understand all the individual components of this transaction, from the user that scanned it, the unique identification information, geolocation information, the authentication status of that part, and also any individual information about the part itself. It's a starter motor for an engine. It has a serial number and a part number that's associated with it. And there's obviously the blockchain transaction ID for this individual transaction that occurred that we're looking at on the ledger. So scanning items and recording the provenance of items through the entire life of the production, from the moment it is born through to its end of life, creating those transaction records on an immutable ledger like a blockchain, is what is important to companies like Honeywell to create that provenance. And having a secure solution that ties the physical product to the digital ledger is becoming a very important part of provenance, anti-counterfeit, anti-gray market, and diversion in the manufacturing of products around the world. So that is the piece that iTrace is bringing to the blockchain community, is that prevention of fraud, the prevention of counterfeit, the prevention of diversion, by creating a secure product identifier that is tied to the immutable ledger, making the blockchain technology even more valuable than it would be by itself. So this is the approach that we've taken. This is the work that we've been doing with companies in the aerospace industry and in the fashion and luxury goods industries. And this is the kind of fraud activities that I was talking to Tanya about, that iTrace has been helping companies fight since we were founded in 2016. So I'm going to hand it back to you now, Tanya, to dig into any questions that you may have and finish up my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was really educational. It was great to learn that there is an alternative to QR code. I didn't know that, so that's great. I didn't know there was so much fraud. That was very interesting, again, to learn, how people invent all kinds of things, to scam. And the second thing that you mentioned, I think, is also very important, is that your blockchain platform connects to the Honeywell's blockchain platform. So I think it's very good for our listeners to understand that blockchain is not just one thing, but really you can, transfer from one to another seamlessly, because there's a lot of buzz about it now in the blockchain world. So that's great. I guess I have a question. How expensive is it? Although I understand it's hard to, but what does that actually involve to get that etching on and to have the whole thing. Is there anything you can say about that?
Yeah, so we tried to have as simple a business model as we possibly could. And what we did was we created an annual subscription license for our technology. We can also do quarterly and monthly subscription licenses, but the basic business model is an annual subscription license that allows the brands we work with to apply our technology to as many products as count the number of items. And our software licenses, they scale up from 150K as basically the entry point per year. And we put a cap on our software license at 550K for the largest companies in the world. So between that range of 150K and 550K, companies will fall into that range. And we basically scale it around the retail value of the products that we're protecting. So how much retail value are we securing for a brand? And we will basically scale the license fee on that model. To apply the marks to a product, we integrate with existing printers. So we're printed alongside the existing label or packaging. So there is effectively zero additional cost for the printing of this technology. And if we're in a laser marking application, we also laser mark the iTrace 2DMI marks alongside the other markings that may be applied to that product, like a serial number or an existing QR code, for example. So again, the mark takes a fraction of a second to apply. And as we're being applied alongside everything else, there is no additional cost to apply this to a particular product. So it really is just a subscription license to the technology that enables a brand to get started with our application. And for the watch companies that we work with, we also provide the marking as a service. We have a facility set up in Shenzhen, China, where we're able to mark parts for watch companies and secure the parts actually separate from the manufacturing. So again, taking the fox out of the hen house and securing products with iTrace as your security partner. So in that way, it's a very cost-effective solution, certainly at large scale, for securing products for brands.
That's great. I'm sure there will be an application in mining industry because we are very geographically diverse. We work with a lot of high value items. So I'm sure we should just look and find, the perfect client for your solution. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it.